So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Sarah Burnett, a true pioneer in the world of intelligent automation. Sarah is the former lead analyst at Everest Group, where I myself witnessed how she shaped the industry thinking, sadly helping shape that with some of my competitors at the time, but we won't hold that against Sarah, on emerging technologies. Sarah's now an evangelist at KYP.ai, helping businesses unlock the power of process intelligence. And she's also the author of the influential book AI in Business Towards the Autonomous Enterprise, which offers practical roadmap to automation first transformation. So welcoming Sarah to the show. I also dug out my book before here as well. But with that, maybe Sarah, give your own intro and yeah, again, welcome.
Thank you very much, Danny. Thank you for that intro. Yes, so I wrote the book to highlight the fact that we were on this journey towards autonomous enterprises, and it was well received, so much so that I was asked to do an update, and I've got the updated version, which came out just in December, and it's now got a new title. It's AI in Business Towards the Autonomous Enterprise. And it was because of what I was seeing as the lead analyst for intelligent automation at Everest that I felt I had so much to say. I could see where enterprises were heading, and I had a lot to say. And I didn't want anyone to forget the opportunity that AI presents for innovation
Mhm.
beyond automation. We're all in a sort of rush to automate, but actually there are new ways of doing things, and AI is the enabler of those new ways of doing business as well.
And I did actually quite like the practical steps. It wasn't all theoretical. It was almost kind of a blueprint in parts to how to do this. But maybe that's a good starting point. I mean, the autonomous enterprise, maybe kind of your definition and thoughts behind that.
Yes, so it's an enterprise that's highly automated, basically. And, every step that we take towards automating yet another task or another process is taking us closer to the end of that journey. And I must admit, it will never end. I mean, once you become highly automated, there'll be other capabilities that I'm sure enterprises will be able to develop. So it's a never-ending journey, but it's about doing things faster, higher quality, better, and hopefully also the customer experience improves through all of this activity. And there are, numerous examples where we have heard about or we've written about where customer experience could be a lot better in many industries. And, hopefully if we design our automations well, we can get there, improve that too.
So it's actually maybe then, obviously in the lead up to this, we had a bit of prep time discussion. We were talking about actually what does it mean for them, and I suppose in this case, them being the insurance market. So maybe if you could share some thoughts there.
Well, I think they have a lot to catch up with. The insurers aren't particularly modernizing, I don't think. I think there are areas where they have modernized, particularly in revenue protection, revenue assurance, trying to find patterns of fraud and that kind of thing. But I do wonder about their data integration capabilities. And I can give you an example, only today I was talking to my private health provider, insurance provider, and I rang them because I found that my premium was going up and up and up, and it's almost unaffordable. So I rang them and said, I've got quotes from elsewhere, and it's half the price that you're quoting me. So why is mine so expensive? And I got a really super helpful agent at the other end, and he talked me through my options, what I already had, how I could get close to what I already had, but reduce my premium because of some limits they would put on the policy. And I was quite satisfied. He literally halved my insurance premium, which you can't be unhappy with that. And yet, I was still going to get quite good cover. And some of that was removing some duplications that I had through the options that I'd chosen. So that was all fine and good. Very happy with that. And then he said it would take a couple of days for the quote to come through. And then he said he would ring me in 2 or 3 weeks' time to see if everybody was okay. I'd far rather the quote came to me
Yeah.
today And I could then review it, compare it with other quotes that I've received, and actually make a decision to whether go ahead or not. So it's only, this is a manual process. So the human touch was fantastic. He went through it very thoroughly and gave me what I was looking for. But then, the back office processes are obviously quite old-fashioned because he couldn't integrate everything. He couldn't get everything out today. So disappointed in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose practically from the insurance perspective, almost got a potential lost revenue as well. How many of that's a single experience that you had, but that's multiplied, I suppose, across all of their policyholders.
Yes. So, it's about data integration. And of course, there's a lot of talk of agentic AI. Well, first of all, will the agentic AI have that be able to build that kind of rapport that I got with this agent going through the sort of human touch, talking to me about the various options? That would be amazing if the agentic AI can do that. And the other thing is, will it actually improve the data integration? Or could it be that it's a rubbish agentic AI because it gets the wrong information? And I can give you an example of that as well. Again, with the same company, last year, I it was them that took a long time to actually come back to me with some changes that I requested. And some of that involved things like dental care, I believe. And the changes didn't actually kick in until after my renewal date. So I was covered and they knew I'd paid for it. But because of their slow systems, the updates didn't go through until I made a claim. And then they turned me down saying I didn't have that cover, which I did. So when I rang them, the agents could see that I had the cover, but they couldn't get to the bottom of why it was being turned down. And it went on for months. This particular dental claim couldn't get processed because their data was out of sync. So one system said I'd paid for it and I was covered, and another system was looking at it as an addition
Hmm.
after the renewal. And I'd made the claim before the addition was in the records. So, again, complete mess. And it took a lady, a very clued up lady in the complaints department to actually sort it out for me. So, what would happen if the AI agent was the only contact point and I couldn't get through it to talk to a human? So, it's really important to be able to offer a connection to humans and being able to resolve complicated things that some of them couldn't understand what was going on. They just couldn't understand what was happening, and only an experienced agent could deal with it.
So the human in the loop, I suppose, having the human where needed, and I suppose we'll come on to I suppose the importance of data as well. But maybe one of the other things that we discussed was around actually what organisations need to explore, maybe in keeping with your example, but also how do they prepare for the adoption of AI agents in their business. We spoke about things previously from understanding language, jargon, proactive engagement, and all those things. So how, I suppose, what are your thoughts around the organisational preparation for AI agents?
Well, it's essential, isn't it? Because insurance is a very uh, jargon-laden industry, isn't it? You have to understand, you really have to have working experience of insurance business, and you have to train the any AI agent that is going to take over your customer interactions. Like a human, you would, a new trainee you would bring into the office. The AI has to learn all of those, has to learn the terminology, has to learn the complexities, and be able to respond in a informed way. And that would take some time, but of course if you're buying from a company that has already trained an AI agent, of course that would speed things up. But then you go into the sort of specialist areas, the complexities of specialist insurance as well. So the training would take a lot of planning, and ideally you would be training the AI on historic cases, maybe anonymized historic cases, and bringing them up to speed in order to tackle new, incoming queries. But that's the same with any AI, isn't it? You have to train it for your business, for your requirement. So that's sort of the first step, I would say.
And I think one of the other things we spoke about was I suppose, building empathy and the potential to build empathy. So either practical steps or maybe kind of discussions you've had with other businesses. But I suppose, what's your thoughts on um, do you try to build empathy within an AI agent? Is something that you actually just I suppose coming back to that human in the loop, is that where you'd look to hand off to people? What are some of the guardrails you'd see from the from an empathy perspective?
I think it's a matter of policy for the insuring company. Um, So there are certain things that I would hope they would automatically hand to a human, and that's anything to do with bereavement, serious illness, any of those sort of loss of income, loss of job in cases of income protection, sort of big events in people's lives. I think ideally they would hand them over straight away to a human to handle. AI isn't, I don't find it particularly good at empathy. And when it does try to be empathetic, it often comes across as, this not genuine. Of course, it isn't because it's a machine. But I think as AI gets better at handling empathy and the training becomes better, because I think the training is still very basic. It's very much on facial expressions, which could be misleading. And so I think it's really the companies have to set very clear guardrails, as you call them, so that people who are in pain or they are, suffering bereavement and so on, don't have to deal with a cold machine, basically. But, over time, I'm sure we will all get used to new ways of doing interactions with businesses. And so this sort of initial fears of how will AI handle my difficult query might go away over time because we get used to what we have, don't we, over time. But ideally, I think you hand over to a human.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe a very real use of maybe empathy or the interpretation of empathy within AI is around that triage. So maybe not having an empathetic conversation, but detecting that empathy is required, and that then signaling that handoff to a human.
Yeah, so there have been examples of where complaints, for example, were done by AI and people were happier because they were getting the responses quicker.
Mhm.
And there are also a lot of people who don't want to work in complaint departments because it's a very demanding job and everybody's angry when they contact them. So maybe complaints where it's textual and so the AI can detect the feel of, sort of understand whether the person is angry the way they're writing to them and then prioritize them accordingly.
Mhm.
But I think there is this kind of there's another level, which is this kind where empathy is definitely needed to do with bereavement, health issues, and so on.
Mhm. And I think one of the other things that we spoke about, which is maybe part of the practical implementation of let's capture it to AI agents, was around quality management. We spoke about data integration as well. I know you had some thoughts on that topic.
Yes, so it's got to be able to reference information correctly. It's got to be able to join the dots.
Hmm.
It's got to be able to look at details. I'm now thinking of commercial insurance with documents that could be 600, 400 to 600 pages long. And, it would need to be able to compare the details, say for renewal from the previous year, compare what's changed, and be able to answer questions correctly. And also cross-reference so that it's able to offer provide quotes that are reasonable and are in keeping with what the customer is asking. So it's really about giving it the tools that it needs to make good decisions, giving it the data that it needs to make the decisions. And I guess that also extends to things like can it do it across multiple channels? Can it do it across multiple conversations? Because you don't, with insurance, like I have to now talk to the insurance agent that, offered me this reduced quote, um, can it pick up and follow on from that conversation? And what if next time I contacted them, I was texting them or I was WhatsApping them, or, it's got to be able to follow through and be able to to deal with the customer through multiple channels and multiple conversations as well.
And maybe part of the research of your book, are you seeing any examples of that working well, that multi-channel, omni-channel handoff experience within insurance or actually any of the other types of industries that you interviewed?
So one of the examples in my book is a local authority that deployed a chatbot. So, and this chatbot is able to converse with the client through multiple channels, the website, chat on the phone, text on the phone. And the latest is they're going to also add some kind of video capability. So I think that's just the chatbot though. That's not a an entire agent, but it's already improved interactions with customers significantly. And they can also use it to run special campaigns. So the interesting thing is what they do with it varies over time. So initially it was part of their overall strategy to digitize their services. But as they've made more and more of their services self-service, this agent has gone back to being more or less a signposting agent. So either points them to the customers documents that they can download or the information pages, etc., or just passes them to a human. Like if they're contacted about bereavement, it's automatic. The agent automatically passes it to a human. So that's their policy
Mhm.
decision. But when they have special campaigns, they train it to deal with the requirements of that special campaign. So the example that I give in the book is a real example they provided me, which is they had to provide a tip license system because of various sort of external reasons. And so they knew that they were going to get a lot of calls about the new tip licenses. So they train the AI, the chatbot, to answer questions about this tip permit come license. And so it took a load of work off the contact center staff that were really stretched. They had a lot of other things to deal with. So it's this kind of variable use, During the pandemic, they were using it to provide pandemic information, often to do with the government changing the rules overnight. So the next day, they would train it overnight. And the next day, it was able to answer questions about the latest requirements to do with the pandemic. So I think it's the flexibility is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even in some of the insurance industries or organisations that we've worked with, it's that ability, I suppose, to train once and then have that information propagate across a potentially near limitless number of agents that they're all engaging, sharing the right and accurate information. But I suppose, again, irrespective of industries, that communication does need the foundations, the plumbing, if you will, of a mature data strategy. So making sure that the systems do talk to each other is something that happens over here. This part of the application over here is aware of it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say the quality is also helped by personalization.
Hmm.
So going back to your question about how it could improve the quality, I was thinking about, some of the jargon that ordinary mortals like me don't understand when you're talking to an insurance agent, an insurance broker. So being able to explain terminology, being able to say what this clause means or in reality for you, and what some of the endorsements might mean. I think those things are really important and actually respond in the style that the customer is using to interact with you. I think this is the really important thing. So use the language that the customer easily understands. That's just one example, I think. But hyper personalization is possible. I mean, if you read what's happening in the world, you could actually give the AI agent access to a lot of personal things, and they can really personalize everything to do with your travel, with your, with your health monitor on your wrist, and sort of proactively then offer you, special services to go with those. But that depends on how much you're willing to share your data.
Yeah, there was an article recently I guess people will know what organisation it was, but there was actually, do you give it access to all of your personal information? Then you've got this AI agent buddy that understands you and can make better recommendations. But I suppose it's then um, how far does it go before it then kind of steps into marketing to you and advertising? It's that tightrope, I suppose, of it being helpful without actually abusing your personal information.
Yes, yes. So it's really should be entirely up to the person to decide what exactly they share. I mean, we have situations when you put an app on your phone, on your mobile phone, and it starts harvesting information without permission. That is just, I don't think people will stand for that for very long.
No, no.
Um, yeah.
And that maybe ties to another topic we spoke about was around risk mitigation and some of the steps and considerations enterprises should have. So maybe we'll dip into that.
Yes. So, of course, having some degree of visibility into how the AI is making its decisions, being able to roll things back after it's made a decision, maybe made a mistake, being able to roll back, um, being able to comply with regulatory requirements, sort of embedding those in the process and the decision making by AI. Lots of different kinds of risks, really, and ensuring all this sort of ethical stuff, like ensuring that people are treated equally, that nobody's sort of prejudiced by the AI, treated prejudicially by AI. All these things really matter and are relevant to really every business, not just insurance, but uh, you know, if if they're quoting for something, it's got to be reasonably fair for their customers, irrespective of whatever, their background, or of course things like health factors and so on will affect things that cannot be helped, but all the ethical stuff applies. Important to really check the decisions at least for a time and periodically, so that they make sure that the AI isn't training itself to do the wrong things. It's important for it to be retrained, for its knowledge to be developed and updated, because things change, requirements change, offering products change, don't they? So it's
Mhm.
got to be maintained as well. And this kind of continuous improvement loop is essential. So checking what it's doing, what decisions it's making. Um, what I find from the case studies in my book is that all the companies that deployed the AI checked it every time, checked every answer, every decision that it had made. And then after a time, they reduced the number of times they were checking it,
Okay.
and then they went towards periodic checks and making sure that it wasn't coming up with ridiculous things, and a lot of retraining, sort of feeding back into the system what they needed to do better. A lot of surveys of customers and staff to see that they were happy with what was happening. So what the customers on what they were receiving, what kind of answers they were receiving from the chatbot, for example. But also if staff were happy with the intents that it had been given and processed, had it picked up the customer intent correctly? Did they need to add to its vocabulary? Did they need to train it on new words that are often created, aren't they? The dictionary changes all the time, and I'm sure in the industry jargon also evolves and changes too. So lots of different aspects, and then working with other systems like fraud prevention. Is it able to work correctly? If you're using AI for fraud prevention, is the agentic AI able to work with that to help with fraud prevention and maybe see through some fraudulent claims before it sort of says it's okay to be paid? Just some examples there.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually what you're saying about the review process, at least kind of within my experience. AI agents or the way in which they present and communicate themselves, for example, to policyholders, really shines a light on the content that it's been trained on. And numerous occasions that, okay, well, it said this, how did it generate an answer? Where did this come from? And being able to um, almost trace the trail back to a knowledge source is then, oh, okay, well, actually, are we managing our knowledge sources correctly? Because it's giving an answer from approved content, but actually, what's the business process behind ensuring that that content is up to date? Again, coming back to the importance, I suppose, of a data strategy and the quality control piece that you were mentioning as well.
Absolutely. And the other thing to decide is exactly how far into the process you want the AI to go. So, are you going to just be the sort of first line of handling customer inquiries and then passing to other systems or passing to humans? Or do you want it to go the whole way, do the quote, be able to do the renewals, write the policy documents, write the quotes, do the contracting? So, how far do you want it to go? So, ideally, I think you would start small and grow the capabilities, but it's not a decision to make. Overnight, you do have to think about what does it mean if am I then getting it to interact with a intelligent document processing solution. For example, if it's going to find information in a 400-page long document, what system does it interact with? It's requires a bit of planning, doesn't it? It's not something you can do overnight.
Yeah. And maybe just dipping back to something you mentioned, this is a not a question that we discussed, so apologies. But you mentioned about the ownership, the not doing things overnight, as you've mentioned. Um, Within your kind of enterprise field of view, how are you seeing the ownership of this within organizations? It's a question we've had for attendees of some of the other podcast sessions, but what's your views on how this is owned within the enterprise?
Well, I would think if you're talking about customer interactions, it's got to be owned and led by the customer interaction team. And all the case studies that I've done, it's the relevant department that does the most business using that technology that leads it and gets the most benefit. Like there's one about how AI is helping stroke patients in Royal Berkshire Hospital in England, and it's led by the physicians. And the IT department has helped them implement it, but they've reviewed what was available, what could be done, and how it is used. That it's the business function. I believe that's the correct way, but you could have an AI center of excellence that would help them, and you could then reuse that knowledge. So if you implement something in one department, you could then perhaps lend some of the staff who were involved in that to other departments and sort of have them sometimes helping the center of excellence. So it's really important because skills are in short supply. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest issues that I find organizations have is understanding how to automate a business process in a sensible, empathetic, and human centric way. And people who've done it are in short supply. So why not pool those resources and help other departments, innovate as well?
And to that earlier point, then maybe the first stepping stone, if you will, of them introducing AI agents into their department or the services that their department provides. They're almost using, take the physician example, they know the process, they understand it, and they're almost augmenting their department with AI to have a variation, I suppose, in the way in which they can deliver those services. So using their own knowledge to critique and build the capabilities of the AI agent
Yes,
as part of its release.
yes, absolutely. The main thing is they had very clear objectives. And I think that can apply to any industry, any company in any industry. So their objective was to make sure that stroke care is fair to everyone who presents with stroke, out of hours or during the daytime or during the weekends, so that your chances of survival weren't reduced because of where and when you presented to hospital with a stroke. So that was their main objective, and they have succeeded in that. The So far the results show that 3 times as many people return to normal independent life. I don't know whether it's normal, maybe limited to some degree, but to independent life after stroke, because they're now augmenting the physicians with the AI that helps them understand what the degree of damage is to the brain and what is the next step in treating that patient, no matter where they are, when they've come in, and where they've presented. Yeah.
Good.
So
Well,
it's having the clear objectives.
as before they start.
Yes, absolutely. And then IT should sort of fall in line and help out, rather than not dictate what is done and how it's done, but definitely be the support for selecting the technology and implementing it. Of course, if they know something else that would do things better, there's nothing to stop them advising and be the sort of consultant
Hmm.
effectively. Yeah.
Perfect. So, Sarah, there may be any closing comments from you that you'd like to share.
I think the only thing I didn't mention is maybe think about whether the AI can be proactive in
Hmm.
offering, better services, better capabilities to the customer. In terms of insurance, I'm thinking, it could be looking at weather patterns. If somebody somewhere they're predicting storms and significant damage, like the likelihood of significant damage, then, for example, the AI could proactively come up with advice and information for customers in those areas. So that's just one example. It could be something to do with the age of the customer. As they reach a certain age, maybe something will go up or some premium will go down. It's all that kind of thing. So proactive communication as well. But the final message really is, don't lose out. Look into it, see what your company can do, what your enterprise can do with AI. And also don't think just about automation, think about innovation as well.
Yeah, and on the on that weather pattern example, I suppose seeing some example actually where you have an AI agent insurance buddy, and it's less about contacting your insurer when you want something or something goes wrong. It's more of a sounds a silly term, almost more of a life companion for helping and advising you, taking the travel insurance example as well. Something that understands what you're doing, conversing with, and can help you more proactively, as you've suggested, rather than that big red button pressing moment that, okay, I need help. I now need to go to my insurance provider and kind of share what's needed.
Yes. Yes. I mean, some people with the wristbands and so on, with the health monitors,
Hmm.
already get advice, don't they? Like, don't exercise today, you've done too much this week. So, yes, absolutely. Preventing issues as well as helping live a healthier life, I think. But while we're talking, there's this image coming to my head of all of us having our own agentic AI. I'm just thinking, we give all our information to our own agent, who then negotiates with business agents, AI agents, and does all of this for us. Maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, well, what was the term at one point? A robot for every human. I suppose it's
Yes.
the potential evolution of that, but more
Yeah. So
more
the laptop becomes intelligent and does the work for us.
exactly. And what a life that would be.
Yeah, a bit scary as well, particularly as I hear uh, some LLMs are refusing to switch off and shut down when they've gone wrong. So that's a whole other
We'll
story.
save that for another time. Um, Good. Well, yeah, otherwise, Sarah, thank you very much for attending. Great to talk and get your views. So, yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Good. Right. Bye.
Bye.